Hi everybody, this is Coach Carolin. Thank you so much for being here today. And today in our session, we're going to talk about getting stuck and where that really starts. Because a lot of us think that getting stuck happens in the downswing, but really that's when we notice that we're stuck. That is not when we're getting stuck. So stay tuned. All right, so when are we actually getting stuck versus noticing that we are stuck? Those are two very different things and they happen at different times. So the problem is we don't notice when we get stuck. We only notice when we are stuck. So when do we get stuck? We get stuck right from the beginning. It doesn't actually happen in the downswing. It usually, for 99% of golfers, happens at the takeaway. Let that sink in. And here's why. Here's why you actually get stuck at the takeaway and only notice it in your downswing, particularly halfway down. That's when everybody typically notices it through impact. It feels like there's a little bump in the road. It feels like there's a bump in your swing and it's not connected and your arms can't quite swing through. And obviously you notice it on your ball flight because it's usually the block or it's the big hook and left miss that starts right and just slings left, which is super difficult to control and to hold on the fairways and also on the greens. So here's why it all starts with the takeaway and we get actually stuck in the takeaway. When I set up here and I start taking my hands back and I start my swing, too many times do I see this or this. So see how here my arms, and I'll show you this from the front as well, how my arms and hands are just kind of taking the club away. Woo, that was close to the mirror. Holy cannoli. Didn't do this move before. Yikes. So it's all just taking it away and there is no core rotation. And this is something you'll see better from down the line again. When there is actually no rotation in my hips and my core at the takeaway, I'm already behind myself because I'm already disconnected. So arms and body get disconnected the second this happens and we don't have that one-piece takeaway. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the one-piece takeaway. Best way to show it to you guys is to just kind of put that club into your belly button and then feel like the first foot and a half off your swing right about 8 o'clock right here is actually driven by the core. It's not that I'm putting my hands away. I'm not lifting my hands away. I'm not picking them up. I'm not moving them back here. I'm moving my entire core. So you see how there's even a little bit of turn and opening already in the hips. And then the hands will obviously hinge and they'll, go up and then you can swing. But if you don't do this, if you miss that train quite literally in the beginning of your swing and you just kind of pick it back up and you take the hands away, which is why takeaway is not a great term for this. David Leadbetter, who's my mentor, he also does not like the term because it almost feels like it's disconnected. And we want to make sure this stays connected. Because here's what happens. So let's assume you actually kind of got disconnected. Now you're catching up with your core and you're lifting. And now your core and your hips are never quite fully turned. So now if you look at the ratio of my hands and my actual body, my hands aren't in front of my chest. If I were to bring my hands in here, they're pretty much behind me, right? If my hands were in front of my chest, they would be more here. So this is in front of my chest, center of my chest, and then they should really only start to get a little bit past that once we have that 90-degree shoulder turn. If you cannot turn 90 degrees, your hands shouldn't be going further. So I know that a lot of people have restrictions and that's totally fine, whether that's injury or whether that's a lot of golf in their life and they've been playing golf for 50, 40 plus years. Totally normal, but still make sure you don't get disconnected because you can still hit the ball further with a connected but shorter swing versus a disconnected longer swing because you are going to struggle with contact and impact. And then you're losing yardage, not because you can't turn, but because you're actually hitting the ground or because you're not hitting the ground and because you're topping it. So this piece is so simple. And guys, you need no athleticism for this. You don't need to be an athlete. You don't need to be strong. You don't need to be young. You don't need to be flexible. You don't need to be anything other than aware. And I would certainly hope so. If you've made it this far to this video, you're very well aware of your golf swing and that you might need a little bit of help. And I'm so happy you're here because the awareness piece is the takeaway. It's really this one piece takeaway right here. You're going to allow your belly button to follow that button of the club. You're going to allow that right hip to get a little bit loose and deep. A lot of people are also very tense and they're like flexing everything and they're like, let me take this away. No, you want to actually just make sure you loosen up those thighs, feel like those hips are relaxing and feel like you're starting your turn and your core turn at the very takeaway. Then you don't play catch up in the backswing. Now we can actually take it up and we're nice and turned. The hips are nice and turned. They're nice and deep. My right hip is nice and deep. Now what happens, my hands are much more in front of my chest. And as they come down, they're also much more in front of my chest. And that's really the key piece. You don't get disconnected in the downswing. You get disconnected in the takeaway, and then you get more disconnected later on. So if you're struggling with this weird feeling, and we've all had this, when you're just swinging and you're just like, oh, why is this not feeling like I can actually get through the ball, and why is it so bumpy? It's likely because of your takeaway. Making sure that core turns away with you. And there's a little gadget I want to show you, and you guys have seen me use this, and I'm not a big training aid girl, but this is a straightaway, and I was just giving a lesson with this the other day, and I absolutely love it. It's really a genius training aid, and if you were to buy any training aid in your life, buy this one. And I understand that we're already spending a lot of money in golf, but this actually is great. And I'm going to put it on here and let you know and kind of show you how this ties into what we're talking about, because this really is one of the only training aids that I've ever seen that give you a visual feedback for what we've been talking about, and also a couple more pointers that are super important in this takeaway. Because if you're already working on a takeaway, you might as well nail all the positions, right? All right, so here, when you're taking the club away, assuming you have an alignment stick on the ground, I don't have one right now, but I can grab my club right here. I'm gonna put my alignment stick down. Imagine this is my alignment stick instead of my hybrid. Here we are. Putting this on my toe line, and now as I'm doing my one-piece takeaway, I'm following the button of the club with my belly button, and here now I can see that this yellow piece is actually parallel to this shaft on the bottom, or the alignment stick that you have there, and that's where you want to be. So now you can see my club head is outside my hands, I'm connected, everything has turned back to that 8 o'clock position in the right way. I haven't whipped it inside, I haven't picked it up, because this thing is going to just point all different directions if you don't do the takeaway correctly. So here we go, boom, and then all you have to do is hinge and turn, and you're right there at the perfect position, and it avoids a lot of shut faces, open faces, bad takeaway moves, picking it up, lifting it up, and just really promotes all the good things that you need to be doing in the start of your golf swing. So from today, I want you to take this. The fundamentals and the beginning of the swing can cause huge chain reactions down the road, essentially in your downswing. So getting stuck happens in the takeaway. Noticing that you are stuck happens in the downswing. So let's get ahead of it. Let's be aware of where it starts and just take a few pointers from this video, go on the range, and I promise you, you're going to be hitting the ball so much better. Also, I'm leaving this link down below if you ever want to check it out. It's there for you. And thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited for you guys to get more distance, to get better contact, and just get better at golf. See you next time.